Hello, and welcome to Speed to Truth, the Scalyr training series. Today, we'll be spending time learning about parsers. You will learn how to create the parser for your logs, including concepts around matching, formats, and attributes. You will need a Scalyr account and logs being sent to Scalyr. Let me introduce our instructor today, Joel. Joel will be taking us through the basics of parsers, and in a future series, we'll be covering some more advanced topics.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this training series on Scalyr. I'm here to demonstrate one of the most important concepts on the platform, parsers. Parsers are a critical component to Scalyr and can be used to unlock many of the key product features that we'll see in later videos. The first thing that you should do when you start building a parser is check out our parser docs. They will help you reference the syntax and features available to you. To do so, go to scalyr.com/help. Click on the parsers page, and here's the docs. They will help you reference the syntax and will allow you to see what features are available to you as you're building your parser. The next thing that we should do when we're building a parser is check out the parser editor tool. So on the documentation page, click the parser editor tool, and here we are. So let's start with this fresh. Let's delete the format here, and let's delete this ID, and then all we need is a log line. So I grabbed one earlier, and let's start parsing this log line. Alright, so everything's built around a format. If we look in this format stanza, we could build as many formats as we want. So let's add a few here. And formats are essentially the backbone of parsers. And what they are is they're essentially regular expressions. And they're just searching for matches within the log line. So let's test one out. So let's just do a wildcard and an infinite number of wildcards. And let's assign an ID to this format so we know if it's matching. We'll just name this A, and then let's add an ID to the other formats as well. We'll call this B. And C. And this one should match A, but not B or C, because we can see that B and C have no regular expression that's going to match this line, and A is basically a wild card, so let's test that. And let's test that. What happens when we paste. All right. And let's test that. And here we go. We see A is true and B and C didn't match. Let's try adding the same regular expression through each and then see what happens. So A, B, and C are obviously going to match. We have some other features here where we can define a halt. So let's put halt is true here. And even though it's going to match B and C, since it evaluates sequentially, it's going to evaluate A, it's going to match A, and then it's going to stop. So let's see that. And there we go. A is true, and B and C don't get evaluated. So how is this useful? Let's add an attribute. And an attribute is basically a key value pair. So when we match this format here, A, let's say we want key and value. So basically we're going to assign a key and a value to anything that matches this, and we could add as many of these as we want. And attributes. There we go. And there we go. We can see key and value populate with this match. So how is this useful? Let's say that we want to match on format A on all GET requests and format B on all PUT requests. So let's try that. So we'll match 0 or more wildcards here, and then we're gonna do GET here, and then 0 or more wildcards. So it's essentially looking for GET, and then we'll do the same thing on this side for PUT. 0 or more wildcards, PUT, and then 0 more wildcards. And let's call the key method, and let's call the value GET. Let's do the same thing here. And we'll call this PUT. And let's remove halt here. And test. And there we go. So since this is a GET method, it's finding GET. It is matching GET here. So let's add another log line, and we can see that, let's say this is a PUT request. It's the first one's going to match A, second one should match B. And here we go. And that's how you attach attributes. So what if we want to grab variables from the actual log message? And this is really where the rubber meets the road when we are doing parsing. So let's say we want to grab this value GET and grab this value PUT. So how would we do that? Well, let's grab the entire line all the way to GET, because that's probably what we want to do. We probably want IP address, we probably want this timestamp, and we want to parse the entire line. So since it's regular expressions, let's start with format A, and it starts with, and it starts with a dash, and then the IP address. So how do we grab this? We're going to assign it to a variable, and this is our syntax here, $2 with a variable name in between. So let's just call that IP. And what these variables actually do is they look until they see the next space. So this is gonna look until it sees the next space, and it's gonna basically grab this entire IP address. So first we have a dash, and then another dash, and then we want to grab this IP address. So within Scalyr, you don't have to define the space. You can just do an actual space character, but functionally this is evaluating like this, space, and then we want to grab the variable after the space, which is going to be the IP address. So this is going to evaluate until the next character that it sees. So the character after that would be space, dash, and then let's just see what that does. There we go. So the variable is going to be the IP address. We don't need to keep these spaces in there. We could actually just put the space character. So the next thing we're going to grab here is the timestamp. So we have open bracket, and then we're going to grab the timestamp. Timestamp is actually a very important field, so we'll call it that, and we're going to evaluate this variable until the next close bracket. And what happens there? We have the timestamp. This is important. It'll tell you if it's actually being parsed by the system. If it's not, then there's some rewrite rules that we'll examine in a later video. So after the bracket, we have space and then another quote. And then we'll call this method until we get to the next space. Let's just grab our response as well. And there we have it. So it's grabbing method, it's grabbing response, timestamp, and then the IP address. So that's an example of a parser. Parsers are actually relatively simple. They are essentially regular expressions and match patterns within your unstructured and structured log formats.